There's Evan.
Just got a text from Commissioner Mayer. I think he's just trying to find the code to get on the meeting here.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh.
Cheers. Hey, Cody. All right.
Hey, sorry for being a little late here.
Oh, we still got one more minute. I understand we now are live on YouTube as we move to the delay for getting onto channel 191. Sean, I'll wait for the thumbs up from you to get the meeting started.
All good on my end.
Okay. All right, I have 6 o'clock. This is my gavel today. The Monday, January 11th, 2021 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag and the United States of America,
To the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. City Clerk, could we have the roll call, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Bonzal,
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
here, Marquette City, Marquette County.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry. I'm also, of course, in the city of Marquette, Marquette County.
I'm going to assume everybody is in the city and county. Commissioner Hanley,
Present, Marquette City, Marquette County.
Commissioner Mayer,
Present, Marquette City, Marquette County.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
President, Marquette City, Marquette County.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
President, City Marquette, County Marquette.
and Mayor Smith.
Commissioners, may I have a motion to excuse Mayor Smith? Commissioner Hanley.
I motion that we excuse Mayor Smith from this meeting.
Commissioner Mayer.
Second motion.
Any discussion? Commissioner Smith is home with a sick child and we need to vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it. It passes 7-0. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion on the agenda? Commissioner Bonsall,
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
do I have a second? Commissioner Davis,
I'll second that motion.
thank you. Any discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes,
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. There are no announcements today. That brings us to public comments. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Do we have anyone for public comment this evening?
I don't think that there is anybody on the chat. I'll let Sean answer that question, but we do have one written comment that I will read in the meantime.
Okay.
And this comes from John Brahms, who writes, I'm writing to express my concern for the future of democracy in America. The tragic attempted coup on our nation's capital by a group of terrorists was beyond forgivable. The belief that a fair and open election is not acceptable if you do not like the outcome is threatening the core values of everything our nation stands for. What bothered me most of all and literally shook me to the core was the fact that an Air Force veteran participated in the act of sedition to overthrow the duly elected representatives of the people and cost her her life. I lived through the 9/11 attack when I was stationed at the Pentagon when I was in the Army, the fact that a member of the military, past or present, would blatantly violate their oath and participate in such an act is shocking and disturbing. I pray for our nation's future and hope for all our safety, but I am concerned we may face more dangers and threats to our democracy in the near future. Stay safe. Signed, John Brahms.
Thank you, clerk. Final call for public comment. Public comment is now closed. All right, following the agenda today, our first order of business is a presentation on the Board of Review. Steve Lowry is going to present, and we are going to be able to watch it on screen. Thank you. Go ahead, Chair Lowry.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and City Commissioners, I'm with you tonight as the current chair of the Board of Review. And I'd like to thank Mr. Hobbins for kindly running the PowerPoint for me from his station there. Current Board of Review has two vacancies at present, and beginning next month, we'll have a third. Ms. McDonald is not going to seek reappointment, so her position will be vacant. We have tried to operate with two in the past, especially when it comes to the March hearings. That's very difficult. I have been trying to recruit people for this board for a couple of years now, unsuccessfully. The people that are interested either don't seem to live within the city or couldn't take the time off work to do it. But we certainly do need additional members willing to do this. They don't really need any particular background, basically just a desire to hear their fellow citizens and try to find them justice if it's warranted. So encourage people to sign up for that. On the next slide are the goals and purpose of the Board of Review. It is mandated by state constitution as well as the city charter. And it's certainly not a huge commitment for people to serve on this board. We meet basically just a few times a year. We have one short organizational meeting in March, and then 2 days of public hearings, another day in July and another day in December that are typically just really a half day at most. So it certainly is a very manageable amount of time for those who might consider volunteering. The duties are very specific. It's I've served on a number of other city boards, and some of the procedures are a little bit more open and allow you to focus on different things and bring different items to bear on the subject matter. Here, the procedures are pretty much spelled out by state law and charter, and we basically hear certain types of protests at different times of the year, and some we have very little discretion on, such as veterans exemptions. We do have to approve them if they meet all the criteria, but others where we have more discretion on a value protest where someone disagrees with the assessments assigned by the city assessor. It's good to be able to provide an independent view of that for the citizens. The city, the work we review is basically done by the assessing department. The staff is on the next slide. You have your city assessor, Miles Anderson, who basically works part-time or as a contract employee and does most of the commercial assessments. I'd like to, one name not up there is Ellen Britton, who was your city appraiser up until I believe November. Just when she retired, I worked with with Ellen for a number of years when I was with the city Marquette. on staff, and certainly wish her well in her retirement. Her position has now been filled by Amanda Winter, who was previously the assessing technician and has now been promoted to appraiser. And she is assisted by Christina Tanisma. So I think they've done an excellent job in the time I've been on the board of review. We do get, I think, a very minimal number of protests of their work, and it shows the quality of effort they're putting into assessing the properties in the city of Marquette. The next couple of slides, the next one basically shows the meeting dates and the types of authority or types of appeals that can be brought before the board of review. Some are brought direct to the Treasury Department or State Tax Commission or to the tax tribunal. The board of review is also not the final appeal for citizens on some issues that we do review. If they don't like our decision, they still can go beyond us to the state tax tribunal. And I don't think there's been I don't recall any going beyond our review in the last few years that I've been on there, but there is an opportunity for commercial properties to kind of jump over the board of review and go directly to the tax tribunal. And there are usually a couple of those in the city of Marquette each year. On the next slide, we have again the a little bit more detail in the timeframes and the authority of each of the different review authorities, City Board of Review, the State Department of Treasury, the Tax Commission, and the Tribunal. And each play an important part in the process, but each is limited to very specific types of appeals and hearings. And property owners who are interested in appealing really need to spend a little time or go in and discuss with the assessing department staff what are the proper procedures to follow when they are going to appeal an assessment. I mentioned basically there have not been too many appeals in the last couple of years, but during 2020, I believe we heard about 161 total appeals. 45 of those dealt with some question related to the value of the property or the personal property. 68 were requests for disabled veteran exemptions. I think there was one poverty exemption that we heard the appeal on, and the others dealt with things like late filings for personal or for principal residence exemptions, for personal property exemptions under some of the state law revisions there that allow owners of smaller values of personal property to be exempt, and a few other items such as property description discrepancies and things of that nature. So really, out of all the properties in the city, 45 feeling that they had some issue with value. And then a lot of times it is basically just that the assessing staff has not been able to get into a property for reinspection or to get a good idea on the inside condition of properties, that once the owner brings us evidence of deterioration or something that wasn't visible from the outside, we can side with them and lower their values. Excuse me. The following slides basically have a few pie charts showing the values of the different classes of property in the city of Marquette. This one shows taxable value. The next will show the state equalized value. And there's a fairly large discrepancy here. Again, this is the result of changes from the 1990s in state tax law, where the increase in value cannot be fully taxed by the local authorities until property changes hands. So that it's basically the inflation control on taxes. You can see most of the property in the city of Marquette, 53% of it value-wise falls into the residential class, about 24% into the commercial class. Personal property makes up a small 3% of the commercial. And then there are various other categories or certain programs like commercial facilities, tax exemptions. That includes properties similar, such as the hospital and a few other newer developments within the community. This totals $809 million, 809.3. That's an increase of 173 million over the previous year in value. But if Sean will switch to the next slide, we can compare that 809 million to what the state equalized value is, 982,554,000. You can see there is quite a bit of untaxed value in the city of Marquette as well under that state proposal. So again here, 54% of this value is in residential properties, 27% in commercial properties, and smaller percentages in the others categories. The next slide basically shows a count of the parcels within the city within each assessment class, and a total of 7,776 parcels. This is not every parcel in the city of Marquette. There are not spaces on the tax roll for some of the state-owned or federally owned properties. This would be just what is on the tax roll itself. So you can see it's a lot of properties to keep up the appraisals on, nearly 8,000 properties. Again, most of it residential, and besides the actual physical properties, there's also a lot of tracking of personal property yet on commercial properties. So that's this whole separate program that tracks that. It's also managed by the assessing department though, and that's primarily a self-reporting system by the owners filing reports on the values of their personal property. The next slide shows that there are 361 total parcels on the tax roll that are considered exempt, and these would be owned by nonprofits or religious organizations, items such as that. Again, it does not include the like the university or the post office or Coast Guard station, those types of government-owned facilities that are not part of the tax roll at all. So again, we have on the next parcel a compilation of the number of petitions filed each year, and you can see it doesn't vary tremendously from year to year. It does, I think, show that we're getting a good level of public participation without unjustly affecting the public with undue assessments. People take an interest where there are errors or things that need to be corrected. They bring them to our attention, but we're not really riling up the citizenry as such with burdensome assessments, from what my opinion would be. So, and then the next slide basically just shows again our role as a board of review. We are sort of the mediator, or the balance between the work of the assessor and assessing staff and the taxpayers. We're not truly a part of the city administration. We're more of an ombudsman for those who have some type of complaint or issue with the administration. In a lot of cases, it's really more of an administrative technicality, such as I mentioned with veterans exemptions, where they as staff can process the request, but we do have an official duty to approve it as taking that value off the tax roll. So it's not all a matter of a complaint as such. We do deal with those poverty exemptions. You pass a certain criteria each year that allows those who are in true poverty and cannot afford their taxes to petition us for an exemption. If they meet all those qualifications and the administration certifies to us that they do based on the filings, we'll review the financial submissions and determine whether we can exempt them from the taxes or not. So I think that the board serves a good function in allowing those who legitimately have an issue with their taxes to come before an independent board and have their basically their day in court and see if they can justify their case to avoid paying the taxes if it's really burdensome. And that's really why we need additional people on that board. It shouldn't be one or two people making those decisions. It's a 5-person board. We really need to fill those other 3 slots so that people do get a fair shake when they come before that board. And with that, I guess I would open it up to the commissioners. If you have any questions of me tonight, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions, commissioners? Comments? Nope, I don't see any, Steve. I do have who would folks contact if they are interested in potentially joining the board? Who should they contact?
Well, the city manager's office has an application form. It's on your city website. It's the same form they would fill out, the application form to join any of the city appointed committees. I believe the manager's office staff reviews it for compliance with all of the charter requirements, and then submits names to the commission. And you review those applications and decide when you're going to appoint people. So they can contact the assessing office if they want more information about the board, or I'd be happy to talk to people too if they wanted to know a little bit more from someone serving on the board. My name, number are in the phone book if they want to get a hold of me. So
appreciate that very much. Appreciate your service. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for this important work to keep communication open between our residents and the work of the city on the most important thing we do, which is this property taxes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to report tonight.
Yep. All right. Moving on, our next agenda item will be a public hearing on Ordinance 694, Land Development Code Amendments. This will require a roll call vote. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 17, 2020 for the consideration of draft amendments to the Land Development Code, the LDC. The proposed amendments are the product of several months of effort by staff and the Planning Commission and have been developed, discussed, and refined during several work sessions in late 2020. The proposed amendments are aimed at improving upon, refining, and clarifying the LDC, which was adopted in early 2019. The motion from the Planning Commission reads that it was moved by Sarah Middlefelt, seconded by Michael Dunn, and carried 5-0 that after review of the draft Land Development Code amendments presented as case 02-ZOA-01-2020, and after conducting a public hearing and careful consideration of the contents of the draft LDC amendments, the Planning Commission finds that the draft LDC amendments are consistent with the recommendations, goals, and policy objectives of the Community Master Plan, comply with Section 54.1405 of the Land Development Code, and therefore are justified, appropriate, and should be approved by the City Commission. Under procedures in accordance with Section 54.1405 of the Land Development Code, City staff has facilitated the process to provide the Planning Commission's recommended amendments to the City Commission for final approval. Tonight's public hearing was scheduled during the Commission's regular meeting on December 14th, 2020. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, following the public hearing, adopt ordinance number 694, Land Development Code amendments, alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. I'm now going to open the public hearing on the Land Development Code. Are there members of the public wishing to make comment? You may have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and physical address. Do we have anyone on the line or any written comments for the public hearing?
There's no one on the line, and I did not receive any written comments.
Okay, then we will close. Seeing none, the public hearing will be closed. Gavel. Moving on, we are going to have an overview from our Director of Community Development, Dennis Stakowitz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, City Commissioners. I'm going to keep this real short. This is a pretty complex thing that came before you. There's a lot of minor changes in here, so I thought I would summarize it very briefly if I can. The agenda cover, of course, was spot on. Over the course of a year or so of staff in the Planning Commission utilizing the Land Development Code, we've noticed several challenges that needed to be addressed, and most of those are being taken care of in these. I will hit the highlights on about 14 of them, and just really quickly, some of the big ones are the outdoor food and beverage service is now a permitted use in the central business district. And previously it was a special land use that required going to the Planning Commission with site plan review. Such is no longer the case in the central business district. Staff worked with the DDA and the Planning Commission. Also had the DDA director meet with them when going through some of these. So that box was checked on it. There is a recommended building height in the central business district that was purely to address, I'll say it was addressed two issues. One was modern building code does not line up with the story heights that we currently have carried over from the old zoning ordinance. There's interior HVAC and things like that that need to be compensated for that actually increase the number of stories, and trying to fit that within the 60 feet and saying you can, each story is 10 feet, having a 6-story building, that just wasn't working. And also we had seen, I believe, 2 or 3 developments that had come through that weren't able to be accomplished because of that building code versus what height we have prescribed issues. So that was a pretty lengthy discussion, and that did also involve the Downtown Development Authority when that change came up. And, Dave could probably speak to it a little more if necessary, but kudos to our staff and Planning Commission. They actually did a survey of all the existing building heights And it was quite remarkable to see what they would come up with, that a number of the buildings themselves exceed the current limit of 60 feet. There are provisions in here to reduce the setbacks for buildings on 3rd Street, so they can have a 0 lot line front yard setback. There are also clarifications for setback distance for sheds and outbuildings on 3rd Street. There is a clarification for the location of rooftop patios on 3rd Street. If we now have one of those, and it was a clarification to clean that up so it doesn't hang over the public right of way. There was an allowance for administrative review for dealing with riparian buffers, which would be buffers from streams and any wetlands we have. The original adopted process had that going to the Planning Commission, which can be quite burdensome and costly for a developer. This iteration has the option for the zoning administrator to review that administratively, so it doesn't go to the Planning Commission. There was an expansion of what would be considered minor PUD amendments. Again, we run into a situation where there was a plan unit development amendment that just needed some contract language changed. And under the old code, that actually has to go through the Planning Commission. City Commission gets quite costly. Now it's programmed in there as being in a minor amendment, which of course can be approved by the zoning administrator or staff to reduce that burden on the private sector. The Planning Commission is recommending the removal of the family requirement for accessory dwelling units. Now, an accessory dwelling unit is what we used to call a granny apartment or a mother-in-law house on the lot. It's a secondary living unit that could be above the garage or in the backyard. When the code was adopted, that specified that it had to be a family member in order to occupy that accessory dwelling unit. They're recommending that be removed, so it opens it up for a lot of opportunities that kind of ties into affordable housing, being that somebody could live in that house and rent it to someone outside the family, which of course provides affordable housing opportunity, and it also provides for that person with the accessory dwelling unit to capitalize on that monetary income to perhaps help them own housing. There are permissions and clarifications for decorative arbors when dealing with gardens and the animal keeping. It does waive snow removal requirement for a clear vision area. I should correct myself and say it provides a waiver process. There are certain lots in the city where people move snow. It ends up piling into the clear vision area that they may have. Some of those folks have no means to get that out whatsoever. So it does allow for a waiver process similar to the front yard parking. It has adjustments that were made to permit more solar energy facilitation in the community, some of the rooftop solar. We've found over the course of time that the way the original code was written wouldn't work with the primary type of solar infrastructure that would be used on a rooftop. So this cleans that up. There's a relaxation of some parking requirements. They go down from 1 1.25 shared down to 1 for a lot of the residential units. Again, mostly designed to make it a little bit easier. There were some adjustments on the lot sizes, and those lot size reductions also now include multifamily residential. So again, that targets being able to promote duplexes and things along those sides. And there was some reduction in the site plan review requirements in that multifamily units that are less than 20 can do an administrative site plan review instead of having to go through the full-blown ordeal with the Planning Commission. And I don't mean ordeal in a bad way, but you get the gist of what I'm saying, Ed. It's going to reduce the burden on folks. So those are the main ones that I just wanted to present to the commission do have our great planner, Dave Stensis here, and wonderful chair of the Planning Commission, Joy Cardillo, is here also, that they could answer any questions that you may have. They were primarily the authors and the folks that work with that on a day-to-day basis. So thank you very much.
Okay, do I have a motion? Could I have a motion, please, to consider this? Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I move that we adopt ordinance number 694, the Land Development Code Amendments.
Commissioner Mayer.
Second the motion.
Discussion? Commissioner Bonsall?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just really want to extend a hearty thank you to the Planning Commission and to our city planners for doing a really excellent job. I think that this is a huge step forward for the city of Marquette. Definitely continuing to make progress, especially when it comes to allowing gradual deployment of more renewable energy in the city, housing affordability. And I was really happy to see the decision to make outdoor food and beverage service permitted use in the CBD, because yeah, I think this is a great example of how, as terrible as COVID-19 has been, there are lessons that can be learned from it. Some things that we've been doing differently that maybe we should continue doing differently. And I think that easing up on the requirements for outdoor food and beverage service is one of them. So I appreciate all the work that was put into this. And I think that especially the residential, the decrease in the residential zoning restrictions for multifamily housing and ADUs are going to have a long-term positive impact on housing affordability in the city.
Anyone else? Thank you. Any other commissioners care to comment on? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Hanley. Yep.
I'm sorry, did Commissioner Mayer want to speak since he was the one who seconded the motion?
I did not see a hand from Commissioner Mayer.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't stepping on his toes. Thank you. I also wanted to second the work that was done on this was long and hard by the Planning Commission and the staff, and it is much appreciated. I'm looking at these changes and there's so many, and there are things that are going to affect people across the board, from business owners to residential owners in this town, and it's going to affect them in a lot of positive ways. I'm very thankful for the work that was done on this, and I just wanted to express that. It's phenomenal.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, thank you. I just wanted to really commend the Planning Commission, obviously, for their great work, and also the staff, but just remind everybody that this process started a couple of years ago. When the Land Development Code came out, deficiencies were noted in it, and it worked its way through the staffing process to make sure things were done correctly. Then, of course, some quick things were added dealing with how we allow people to eat outside, et cetera, relating to COVID. So the point being to my little soliloquy here is simply that city can react, it can be agile, it can make quick decisions, and it can get the job done. And I think this is a wonderful example of that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, just I'll my chance to weigh in and also extend my sincere appreciation to the really hard work that folks have done, the hours and hours that the Planning Commission meets, and the staff not only processing the requests and work that comes through, but also taking care of the actual change in the code itself. Much appreciated. And a reminder too that you can all the mapping software is now up that allows you to go in and put your property address in, and you can find out what is viable and legal for your property now, all on one map. It's a pretty really nice, sophisticated, but easy to use piece of software. And I thank the staff for also putting the time in to make sure that was there and ready to go as we rolled out the new Land Development Code and all these new changes. Okay, I think we'll go ahead then with no further comments. We will need a roll call vote from the city clerk for this motion, please.
Commissioner Bonsall,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes,
and Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you again, everyone, for all your good work. Greatly appreciated. All right, next up on the agenda is item number 3, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Davis,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Commissioner Bonsall,
I'll second that motion.
discussion? No. Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
yes,
Yes.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to unfinished business. City Clerk, could you please read the background on agenda item number 4, the Founders Landing Parcel 2A Development Agreement?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Home Renewal Systems Founders Landing LLC, HRS, and the City of Marquette will be closing on the sale of Founders Landing Parcel 2A this week. The last obligation for both parties in the purchase agreement was to come to terms on a local development agreement that outlines responsibilities for each party with regard to the development of the property. The attached local development agreement has been reviewed by all legal teams and is considered mutually agreeable to all parties. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, approve the local development agreement with HRS Founders Landing LLC as presented and authorize the execution of the document. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commission, do I have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to approve the local development agreement with HRS Founders Landing LLC as presented and authorize the execution of said document.
Commissioner Davis.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I also do note that Mr. Katzen from HRS is here with us via Zoom if there are questions during discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Stonehouse, if you have any comments.
Well, the only comment I would make is that this has been a long time coming. I'm glad we're getting to the end game on it. And certainly it'll be a good asset for the city of Marquette and our residents.
Commissioner Davis?
I just echo the comments from Commissioner Stonehouse. I'm very anxious and looking forward to having the Founders Landing completed. And yes, it's been, the whole Founders Landing project has been a lot of years in progress, and this will be our final sale.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Bonsall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. First I want to thank city staff for all their hard work on this project over the last couple of years. I'm glad that we were finally able to be presented with a development agreement, and I don't see any problems with the development agreement itself. However, I do think, it is important to point out that in order to get here, we had to approve 5 extensions of the purchase agreement deadline totaling over 300 days. And also that there were assurances that were made earlier on in this process before we were presented with this development agreement and before we were asked to approve those extensions, in which it was stated at a city commission meeting that the goal was to make these townhomes, quote, attainable for the average household in Marquette. Similar statements were made in the media back in December of 2018 and continuing into the summer of 2019. I was on the Brownfield Authority at the time, and in July of 2019, I was at a Brownfield Authority meeting where this Brownfield plan for Parcel 2A was being discussed. And I asked, the architect, what does affordable and attainable mean to you? Because that wasn't something that had ever been clarified up until that point. And it was then that, it was made clear that, well, these townhomes are going to be starting kind of the mid 300s. And up until that point, it hadn't been made clear in the media or in public meetings of the city commission where this project was discussed, that was the price range that was going to be targeted. Previously, words like affordable for the average household and attainable for the average household had been tossed around. As of today, there's at least one of the smaller 1,400 some square foot units in this development that I saw listed online for $359,900. I'm not sure what the larger, 1,500 or 1,600 square foot units are going to be priced at. If it was at the same square foot, the same per square foot rate, those would be in excess of $400,000. And I just think it's important to remind everyone that, for context, the median household income in the city of Marquette is about $40,000 per year, which, when you do the math, comes out to the median household being able to afford a home, to buy a home, at around $200,000 or $210,000. So I don't think that these townhomes are affordable or attainable by any reasonable definition. And I guess I'm a bit disappointed that initially public statements and assurances were made that weren't followed through on, and also just dissuaded and discouraged by how long it took to get to this point, by all the extensions we were repeatedly asked to approve. So I just want to be clear, I'm not opposed to any redevelopment of this parcel. I understand the situation with the TIF revenue for this proposed development being part of our revenue stream for the future Lower Harbor piling reuse project. And I commend HRS for the great work that they did on the Grandview Marquette project, but I don't appreciate that for this particular project, the goalposts have been moved a couple of times and public assurances were made to this commission and to the community that haven't been kept, haven't been followed through on. So, and that's why I voted against the last purchase agreement extension on September 14th. And to be honest, why I'm having a hard time supporting this action right now.
Would you like to comment, Mr. Katz? And I saw your screen go on there. No. Okay. Oh, you're on mute, sir. There you go.
Better?
You should be. Yes, there we go.
You hear me?
Yes.
That's right, because my screen says mute, and then I clicked unmute, and now, so, but everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We just, I know this project took a lot longer than everybody anticipated to get to the finish line here. We are excited about the redevelopment of the parcel, and if the goalpost moves, I guess, quoting you, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and we're just excited to get started, and I hope that it's a successful project for everybody.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Comments? Questions? Commissioner Bonsall.
Yeah, I would just, I understand things happen. I hope if this development agreement is approved, I also hope that it goes forward as a success for everyone. Just wanted to explain some of my concerns.
Thank you. I see no other hands up. Maybe Mr. Katzen, could you possibly explain, given that the closing is going to happen this week and we are in the winter season, can you speak to your plan for next year at this time?
Yeah, our intent is to get started in the spring. We're going to continue lining everything up, so as soon as the weather breaks, we can get started.
Okay.
We would hope to have the first deliveries probably in the late fall timeframe.
I'm not sure what deliveries means in this.
Oh, the first occupancies.
Okay. All right. And these are all properties will all be for sale. There's no rentals here. These are all going to be.
That's correct. Yes.
Condos. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll go ahead and put this to a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Those opposed, please say no.
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 All right, so that is 4-2. I believe clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, and the motion passes 4-2. Okay, thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. Moving on, we have agenda item number 5, extension of a purchase agreement, due diligence period, parcels 9 and 11 at the former Heartwood property. City Clerk, could you please read background?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Longyear Corporation is requesting an extension of the due diligence period for the purchase agreement for parcels 9 through 11 of the former Heartwood Forest property. The request is to permit them to finish the Phase 2 environmental assessment of the property and is permissible per the executed purchase agreement. This request will extend the due diligence period until March 15th, 2021, which is allowed under the executed purchase agreement. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, grant the requested extension to the due diligence period. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, could I have a motion, please? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to grant the requested extension for the due diligence period.
Commissioner Bonsall?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And I do note that Mark Blum with Longyear, which will be the purchaser, is on the phone to answer questions, on the Zoom call, I should say. Any comments, Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, Your Honor, I think it's very important we do things right. I think we particularly need to pay attention to the environment that we're working in. And if this gives us the opportunity for a little better information to do things a little better, I'm all for it. So certainly I can support this. Thank you.
Commissioner Bonsall?
Yeah, I agree with what Commissioner Stonehouse said. I think it seems very reasonable to grant this extension. I did just want to, and I'm sure we'll have much more in-depth discussion about this at a future meeting, but just wanted to raise a couple of, I think I have 3 questions that I really hope will be answered by the time we get the final development agreement in our hands. So the first one, and maybe, you know, Mr. Blum, maybe you can even answer some of these now. If not, I understand. But the first one, first question would be, what will be the total acreage of the medical device manufacturing facility and the associated parking lot upon the completion of the project? And I understand that, you know, this kind of the plans are to sort of start smaller and potentially expand. So what would the acreage of potential, you know, just estimated acreage of potential future expansions be? I think that would be important to know to get a picture of what the impact on the land use would be.
Okay.
Or on the land rather. The second question that I had was what will be the impact on existing trails on the property? How will those trails be managed and preserved? And I really would like to see something a little bit more detailed regarding conservation and trail management in the final development agreement. Something more than a general commitment to working to the NTN, personally. And then the final question that I hope will be answered by the time all is said and done is this is a 62-acre property between the 3 parcels, more or less. And I'm having a hard time imagining how, you know, more than maybe 10 or 20% of that gets taken up by this facility. The rest of that property is zoned mixed use, which allows a very wide range of potential land uses, from full range of residential and commercial up to even some light industrial uses. So I think we would all like to have a clearer idea of what some potential future plans for the rest of the property are, if any.
Okay, sure. And Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners and Commissioner Bonsall, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. You know, I'm Vice President and CFO for JM Longyear, so I'll answer your questions the best I can. Some of it in terms of size, I can probably go back to the schematics, but I will tell you we have done some very detailed work so far. We've been working with Tri-Media and IDI Designs on, first of all, Tri-Media on the property itself with regards to the topographic survey, you know, our Alta survey and conceptual layout. The initial building we're planning is about 30,000 square feet, you know, an investment of anywhere between 3 and 5 million, with the ability to park about 100 parking spaces, you know, and the ability to bring in trucks, et cetera, for raw material and excuse me, machinery unloading. So the actual size or footprint of the initial building probably takes up maybe about 6-7 acres total, you know, in terms of, if you think about ditches and parking lots and, you know, turnarounds and such like that. So it is, you know, it is a, you know, we wanted to have a side at least, I'll say 10 to 12 acres for the ability to scale up to about 100,000 square foot total building, you know, in the future, which could be, you know, 5 years down the road or something like that. So we have more detail on that, and it will be in our development agreement as to what, you know, what space we will take up. As we know it today, of the 62 acres, about 50% of it is developable. So, you know, that gives a little bit more room for some other things, but what we wanted to do is probably carve out about 15 to 20 acres for ourselves, you know, for future expansion. As it relates to the existing trail, and you're right, we will have a more detailed plan in the development agreement. As you know, Longyear, almost all of the Forestville is on Longyear property, right? So we have been a very good steward working with the NTN and they with us as well, to you know, grow their trail network and maintain it. So we don't foresee any issues. You know, if we do have to disrupt something, we obviously will make amends for how we move that forward. And in particular, if there are areas we're not going to use, those would be areas where we can move it. So we don't anticipate any areas, but all I can say is, if you look at our track record with the NTN, I think we've been a very good steward. And in terms of environmental impact, all of our lands are in the US are FSC certified, Forest Stewardship Council. So we have very strict best management practices that we need to abide by, and we plan to take that same level of care, you know, moving forward. So, and then you said about the 62 acres mixed use. As I said, we'll carve out maybe a third of that for ourselves, like you said, about 30%. And the rest of it is, you know, we don't know yet, but we could see this if you look at Marquette itself, right? And you're all in the know, but it's a, you know, it's a cool city, right? People want to live, work, and play here. So if you look at the different types of technologies there are out there, from, you know, additional med device, or maybe it's tech or aerospace or something, we see something, you know, in the future, not knowing what that is, but are we able to attract other businesses to come to the area that show, hey, look, there's a couple med devices here in this town. Maybe there's an aerospace, but maybe it becomes a small light industrial technology park or something along those lines. Again, that's like a long-term strategic goal, but you know, those are kind of what we envision for the property and the parcels. We think it's a great opportunity to grow that, especially when you saw with COVID, you know, people wanting to come to, I'd say, more rural areas, but still have the infrastructure to be able to grow businesses. And, you know, we do have that talent here, not only in Michigan, but in the Upper Peninsula with, you know, the universities. If you look at Northern Michigan and Michigan Tech being within a couple hours of Marquette or within the city, we think we have some opportunities to grow that and maybe attract some other businesses in the future. So hopefully, Commissioner, that gives you a rough idea of what our plans are there and answers your questions.
Yeah, thank you. That's really great. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Any other, Commissioner Hanley?
Thank you. I would like to thank you guys for this. I think that it's great to give you guys more time. I completely understand. I would like to kind of go along with what Evan was saying. I really would like to see making sure that we put some sort of actual easement in writing in there for the NTN. I know that there's a lot of plans for bigger things, and you guys have worked with them great over the years. I don't see that stopping. But as you are a business, I understand that sometimes things don't align and business would come first. And I want to make sure that we're protecting the trails that are one of the biggest draws to our area and protecting that for the riders and things like that. Other than that, I do think that this is great, and it's a great idea, and it's a great opportunity to possibly bring more businesses to the area. I love the idea, and I'd love to continue to work with you on it, but I do want to make sure we're protecting the trails, and I'm very, very big on that.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Commissioner Mayer.
You know what? Thank you, Commissioner Bonzel, for asking all those questions. I think they're great questions. And thank you, Mark, for answering them as detailed as he did and actually giving us a picture of what you're thinking and what this is going to look like. I really appreciate it. It gives us a lot better idea when we're trying to actually picture this long term ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you.
I see, oh, Commissioner Davis, go ahead.
Just a really quick comment, and just that I feel that Longyear is a good partner for us with this purchase and moving forward with the development. And I'm really pleased that you're bringing business into the city limits and growing some of that for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it. We have, for all the commissioners, just so you know, we probably have to date, since we signed the, purchase agreement or the I guess the transfer with Viridia, about $100,000 in work, just in design work of the building and about the other work with, just the land itself. Dennis has been great helping us as we work with Tri-Media. So I appreciate all the help he's given us, and looking for, again, as we think about the trails, that has been on our agenda as we do look at what is going to be the most, I'd say, efficient use of that property in terms of both access and, being able to get I'll call it to the backside of the property, right? But access off the main road, because we've run already into a couple snags where we'll probably have to do a traffic study, just given where we were looking at an entrance, and then that being too close to Division Street. So we'll continue working with those. And again, I just want to shout out to all the commissioners. Thank you for working with us. I welcome the questions. If you have them, by all means, always reach out. And a thank you to Dennis and his team at the city, who have been very helpful to date as we navigate this. The reason we picked March 15th, it is within 60 days, but we've sold some property in Minnesota that we had planned to use like-kind exchange 1031 funds. So our expiration is on that March 15th. So for us, that was a hard deadline as well.
Thank you. Actually, that answers one of my questions, which was the timeline. Appreciate that. And I also, seeing no other comments from the other commissioners, my question, it does regard the infrastructure. That's a pretty significant size building. I would imagine that there's going to need to be utilities, and I'm pleased to hear there will be a traffic study. That is an area that we're already, I think all of us have gotten questions about access and crossing the roads, and how is this going to look. I know there's plans to move things off 553 and move some things onto Division Street. So I think, letting us know as soon as you can what these are going to look like, bringing this level of development. So my questions, I guess, are infrastructure, utility infrastructures, and traffic and pedestrian and bicycles, and how that's going to be addressed.
Yeah, and that's all addressed. That's one part of the issue we're working on as well. We're about 65% complete on that with Tri-Media. And that's why we had some questions for Dennis before the holidays on, there's some areas where we can come in that might allow us to come, but we might have to dip down into some city property for an easement. So, which would save us from having to put big culverts in to access the back half of the property. But we are taking everything into consideration. Yes, the traffic study, there's been discussions about, could we come in off of Pioneer Road, as an option, but again, the city is working on those with us, but we are looking at every, I'd say, the most efficient and effective and safest access to that property. Thinking from the standpoint that we could have 100 cars coming, in and out of there every day, right? With a double shift and a couple, I'd say, semi trucks loads of raw materials on a weekly basis. We want to be cognizant of those measures as well. So. Honorable Mayor, they are still in the works, and those are the issues we are hoping to address during this additional 60 days of due diligence as well.
Dennis, do you have anything you wanted to say? I wasn't sure. You're good. Okay, Dennis is fine. Thank you for understanding. And I guess the only other thing I would say is I wonder about, as I live over here in South Marquette, whether there'd ever, I'm just throwing this out here, the need for a sidewalk on Pioneer is as something that might also come onto the agenda. There's fairly dense housing on Pioneer, and with us all walking more these days with COVID, I know I'm walking in a shoulder, and luck, we haven't had much snow, but that's a pretty heavily traveled road, and that's another thing we might want to think about down the road if we're going to bring this many people into that space and getting them connected over to the path, I guess, the multi-use path on 553, and doing that in a way that's safe.
And that was brought up as a concern as well, which is why we haven't settled on anything yet. Again, there were preliminary discussions as to how to look. I think we want to see how the phase 2 comes out, after we do the environmental survey, where that we may be able to cut in there as well. So that's again, everything we're looking at, and when we met with the members of the city, Dennis and team, that was one of the first items that was brought up as well.
Okay. Yeah, in addition to the questions raised by Commissioner Bonsall, which I also agree with. So thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I think we are ready now for a vote on this motion. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Hearing none, so we have 6-0, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it, commissioners. Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business. We have a resolution regarding the vaccine for the coronavirus. This will be a roll call vote. City Clerk, could you please read the resolution?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The resolution reads, whereas the City of Marquette, Michigan has responsibility for ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of residents and visitors, and whereas, according to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, regarding COVID-19, the pandemic demonstrates how diseases without vaccines can devastate economic and public health. And whereas vaccines have reduced and in some cases eliminated diseases, and whereas MDHHS is following CDC recommendations for prioritization of distribution and administration of COVID-19 vaccines, and has also obtained input from state public health and healthcare leaders and reviewed correspondence from the public. And whereas distribution will be in a phased approach with an emphasis on ensuring continued functioning of the healthcare system and essential services in the community, and protecting people at increased risk for severe COVID-19 illness. And whereas the Marquette City Commission recognizes the critical importance of the COVID-19 vaccine program and wholeheartedly supports the efforts by the federal government, state government, and our local health department to vaccinate our community against COVID-19 as soon as logistically possible. And whereas the City Commission would also like to extend a sincere thank you to the members of the Board of Health, our local health department, and our healthcare system for working together to prioritize vaccination efforts and ensure a smooth process for community vaccination. Now, therefore, we, the Marquette City Commission, in an effort to help reassure and encourage the public to get vaccinated, do hereby resolve that each of the 7 Marquette City Commissioners are ready and willing to be vaccinated for COVID-19 as soon as their respective turn is up, and are also willing to have their vaccine shot recorded via video or photograph by the media and broadcast to the public in an effort to help with this critical public health undertaking. Dated this 11th day of January, 2021, and signed Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a motion, please? Commissioner Hanley.
I motion that we adopt the COVID-19 vaccine resolution as proposed to us.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayer.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion, Commissioner Hanley?
I just can't say enough how much we need to get this vaccine out there and make sure everyone understands how important it is. We all want to get back to some semblance of a regular life, and this is one of the major steps. The science behind it is sound. It has come from many years of research on the mRNA, and it is one of those things that we just need to make sure that the public understands that it is not a rushed vaccine. It is simply one that didn't have to go through the red tape that other vaccines have to go through, and we had every scientist in the world working on it, which is super helpful. But no, I cannot stress enough how much I'm ready for this vaccine.
Commissioner Mayer, any comment?
100% support this, and I think it's great that we're doing this.
Anyone else? Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good, cool little thing that we can do. Maybe, people aren't convinced by several former presidents getting vaccinated live on TV. Maybe they'll be convinced by seeing their local elected officials do the same. So I think it's critically important that we're promoting the COVID-19 vaccination and that we can get to a point of herd immunity where COVID-19 is no longer the critical threat that it is to public health.
Thank you. Anyone else? City Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bonzal,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
What is the line form? I'll be there now. Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the whereases, Clerk Whitney. Next on new business, we have item number 7, which is the rules of procedure for the City Commission 2003-01. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Each year, the City Commission adopts rules of procedure to help the Commission run an efficient meeting and to deal with the public and the media in a positive manner. The rules were most recently amended on November 30th, 2020. The Open Meetings Act was amended on December 23rd, 2020, and the attached version reflects those amendments. The attached version places the rules in outline format with suggested changes in red. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, discuss the City Commission Rules of Procedure number 2003-01 as amended and approve the rules along with any changes the Commission should determine. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
May I have a motion, please? Commissioner Davis.
Yes, I move that we approve the rules of procedure number 2003-01 as amended.
And may I have a second? Commissioner Hanley.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Davis, any comments?
Just real quickly, this merely extends our ability to meet electronically or via Zoom through March 31st of this year. And as we continue to address the COVID-19, and I'm hoping it doesn't have to go any further than March 31st.
Commissioner Hanley. Okay. Anyone else? I would note that following the schedule that I've last seen from the Department of HHS, I actually, in my status would be, I might actually not get the vaccine until later, after March 31st. I wondered, hopefully things will roll out. I know we're going to be starting here in the city here at the end of the week. Things hopefully will be able to go quickly as we get procedures established, but I don't know if there's anything you want to say, City Attorney, about might we need to move to extend this again, or what would be the process for that?
So the Open Meetings Act was amended to allow for remote meetings through March 31st, 2021. After that time period, remote meetings can only occur similar to what we talked about back in November, I believe it was November, if there's a state of emergency locally, which actually is in place. Our county has declared a local state of emergency. So that is something that could continue. But additionally, individual members of the commission could still attend virtually as allowed by the Open Meetings Act after March 31st, as long as they meet the criteria that is allowed, such as medical, and those types of criteria. So we don't really have the ability to just say we're not going to meet virtually unless the Open Meetings Act is extended, or unless the local state of emergency continues. And then really it's a matter of, at that point you can, but if not, then it's individual commissioners may be able to attend remotely instead.
Thank you. Is there any time frame on the local state of emergency?
That was, excuse me, that was extended in December. And I don't believe they put an end date on that at the county level. So it's really up to their call at this point.
Okay. Thank you. It's helpful to know the process. Do appreciate that, bringing your expertise here. Any further comments, commissioners? If not, I'll go ahead, and this is not a roll call. So all in favor of the motion on the rules of procedure, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. And next up, we have item number 8 on new business, the hazard mitigation plan update. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you. Under terms of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, FEMA requires a hazard mitigation plan for every county in the United States. Marquette County's previous hazard mitigation plan was approved by the Marquette County Board of Commissioners and by FEMA in 2015. The hazard mitigation plan describes the various natural and man-made hazards faced by residents of Marquette County, along with measures to be taken to reduce those hazards. The required 5-year update makes Marquette County and participating cities and townships eligible for future FEMA funds and was approved by the Marquette County Board of Commissioners. By keeping the plan up to date, it ensures continued success, both in identifying hazards and in acquiring federal funds to help address them. As a part of the hazard mitigation plan update, the following 2 shoreline restoration projects were added for the city of Marquette. Number 1, shoreline restoration to protect the Hawley Street lift station and a 3,680-foot long section of 16-inch sanitary sewer main located along the Lake Superior shoreline. Number 2, shoreline restoration to protect Lakeshore Boulevard, the Lakeview Arena storm drain outfall, and Shiras Park parking area. It was necessary to include these projects in the hazard mitigation plan in order for the city to attempt to secure additional grant funding in the form of a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant for shoreline mitigation. The BRIC grant is an application to FEMA for an additional $3.5 million to dedicate to shoreline infrastructure, which would assist with phase 2 of the Lakeshore Boulevard project. Although the plan covers a wide array of topics, the sections of the county hazard mitigation plan that would reflect the update necessary for this grant process can be found on pages 30, 31, 32, and 72 of the attachment. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, adopt the updated Marquette County hazard mitigation plan. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Do I have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to adopt the updated Marquette County hazard mitigation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Second? Commissioner Davis?
I'll second that motion.
The discussion, Commissioner Stonehouse?
I think the only comment, Your Honor, would be that it gives us an opportunity to gain additional funding for the project and does no harm to the city. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I was very glad to have spent some time studying this document, and for community members who haven't, it includes our shoreline flooding and erosion, and it is probably no surprise that it's high risk and high vulnerability. We really need some long-term solutions and mitigating measures for our shoreline, and as we move forward with our strategic planning in the next several months, I hope that we give this some serious consideration. And the fact that this plan will assist in our quest for additional grant funding related to Lakeshore Boulevard, I'm very supportive of it.
Any other comments, commissioners? Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I think that I agree with what Commissioner Davis just said, and the hazard mitigation plan is probably the most important document in Marquette County that almost nobody has read. And so I think that, this is a good opportunity for all of us to familiarize ourselves with it. And I also just really want to thank my colleagues at the County of Marquette, who the planners at the county who put in a lot of time and truly, dropped everything in order to get this plan update complete, so that we wouldn't lose that opportunity to seek some really critical BRIC funding from FEMA. So just want to give them a shout out as well.
Anyone else? I do have a question. I don't know if Director Stakowicz, would you be able to speak to the timeframes on this? It's funny, hadn't But what is the schedule for application, or if we're going to cover this at the work session, that's fine as well.
Well, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. We are in the process of applying for the BRIC grant. We did a pre-application with our partners of SWP, and we had received some feedback on that. One of the feedback items was that the hazard mitigation plan for the county needed to be updated to include this. So if I could, just for like 15 seconds, major shout out to Marquette County Planning, because they dropped everything they were doing to be able to help us do this. So now that it's adopted, we are going to, that was one of our corrective actions for the application. The deadline will be the 15th, which I believe is Friday. We will submit for that BRIC grant, and then we should know whether we will be able to successfully secure that funding early spring. If we are successful in that, then the funding is actually, it continues after the summer. It would be for early next fall. We would be successful in securing that. And we have been, as we deliberate what you will see in the upcoming work session, the phase 2 of the project, we are considering the possibility of getting this grant and breaking some work further from that phase 2 that would be paid for by this. So in addition to phase 2, we're already starting to think ahead of how we're going to work down the shoreline to make it a complete system.
Thank you. That's good to hear. And I also send my great appreciation to the Marquette County Planning staff and the Marquette County Commission for working together and with us to make sure that this got done. And on top of COVID and all the other things that we have that we're working under right now. So very greatly appreciated. This is also not a roll call, so I'll go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. All right, that concludes the business portion of the meeting today. We'll move on to our second public comment period. Public comment is now open. Please do not exceed 3 minutes and state your name and physical address. Do we have anyone for public comment at this time?
We do not.
Thank you. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. That brings us to comments from the commission. I am going to be following the order that was set by Mayor Smith. So first up today will be Commissioner Mayer.
Well, that's kind of convenient because I honestly didn't have too much to say tonight. Good seeing everybody and good meeting. I'll just keep it brief.
Thank you. Commissioner Stonehouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good things done tonight. Really, a lot of them accomplished. And maybe the last thing we did is most illustrative of that, with how the county and the city worked together to get a project done, to get something ready to go to, again, save really to both of our mutual gain. Certainly very good to see the vaccine project coming down the highway. Even better to see all of the city commissioners standing together, their willingness to get the shot. And I think that's a huge thing today when we're seeing little splitter groups break out that don't want to do it for whatever reason. So all of us standing together, I think that sends a very strong message. And I look forward to the opportunity, as I jokingly said, to be part of that. Good news, certainly, on the updates to the LDC, because it demonstrates many things, listening to the people, responding to the situation, all of that under the blanket of COVID and having to respond and not actually function under those very difficult conditions. So thank everybody for making all that work. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. There's a couple things I wanted to touch on tonight that I think are very important. First, I'm definitely very optimistic about the process moving forward for the COVID-19 vaccine. Of course, we found out recently that as of today, all city residents ages 65 and up, and many frontline workers are going to be eligible to receive the vaccine. I'm glad that we passed the COVID-19 vaccine resolution earlier tonight, and that the city is standing ready to assist the county health department with vaccine distribution however we can. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some updates very soon from the county health department and receiving the vaccine myself as soon as I'm able. As far as a couple updates I wanted to provide about housing. So I think that over the last year, we've been able to work together very effectively on the housing, the ad hoc housing committee that the city commission created last January. And we're now on the cusp of, by the end of this week, we should have our commissioners here, and the public should be able to view our final report, or at least our first report about the housing situation in Marquette and our initial set of policy recommendations on how to meet some of the housing challenges our community is facing. So I think January 15th was the deadline the commission set earlier this fall for receiving that document, and we're going to meet that deadline. And we have a meeting tomorrow morning where we'll be approving the final report and recommendations. And I'm definitely optimistic, especially after the passage of the LDC updates today, that we're going to be able to make a lot of progress, implement many of the recommendations of the report in the coming months and years. And I'm also looking forward to an upcoming work session where we'll be able to discuss that report and its recommendations in more detail with a joint work session of the commission and the housing committee. So that I just wanted to provide that update to the commission. I think everybody is pretty much on the same page about that at this point. And then finally, I just wanted to make a brief statement about some of the recent events that took place at the U.S. Capitol building. I have great respect for history. I'm a huge history nerd. I interned at the Capitol back in 2017 for the summer. Spent a lot of my time giving tours to many Michigan residents throughout that historic building. Really learned more than I ever wanted to know about it in its history. My dad was also a law enforcement officer in the area here for more than 30 years. He's been shot at in the line of duty on various occasions. And I just want to first offer my condolences to the many people, including, law enforcement officers, people like my dad, who were wounded, hospitalized, some of them even killed last week at the Capitol. But I also can't express how strongly I just want to condemn the unpatriotic, shameful, and in my opinion, frankly, traitorous actions of the mob of rioters who descended on our nation's capital last week. Anyone who perpetrated, aided, or abetted that violence, in my view, should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I think I speak for probably everyone on this commission and in the city of Marquette when I say that any similar violence will not be tolerated in the city of Marquette. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, this was one of our shorter meetings, but yet the work that we got accomplished was very significant. And so thank you to all of that work that went behind the scenes. And I have only one thing, and that is I think it's worth one more appeal to anyone who's listening and as a resident of Marquette to think very seriously about joining the Board of Review. I think our city and those who own property in it really could use some assistance.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanley.
Thank you. I wanted to stress, along with what a lot of the other commissioners have said, the vaccine being available to the public at this point for age 65 and up. If you are available, or if you meet the qualifications for phase 1B, call your local health department, get an appointment set up. Right now, most of them are doing it by appointment only because of the vaccine limitations right now that we have. So make sure you're doing that. And if you're questioning whether or not you should get the vaccine, talk to your doctor. Don't look on the internet. Don't look to any of us. Talk to your doctor. That's a decision that you and your doctor should make together. And I think that is something that a lot of people need to do. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you. The only comments I have tonight are to, again, send my appreciation. Thank you. A very good meeting tonight. Lot of hard work over the years to get us to where we are now, being able to pass these resolutions and changes to some significant city policy. Looking forward to learning more about upcoming projects that we are beginning the process to now engage in. Very interested in what we're going to learn at the, we're going to have a work session on the 19th on Lakeshore Boulevard, on the Lakeshore and portions of Lakeshore Boulevard that I think is going to be very important. And I will also close with a comment on the federal action, the things that happened at the U.S. Capitol. I want to say that, you know, it starts here with local government. We know that our local election was fair and was counted as it should be. And I have absolutely 100% faith in the electoral process that led to the results of all the local, state, and federal elections in our country. That takes literally millions of us working, doing our part in this process of democracy. And it was a fair and safe election. And where there were problems, they were identified and they were addressed. And it is absolutely unconscionable that the idea that mere allegations would be enough to delay the peaceful transfer of power in our country. And I cannot say strongly enough that it starts here at local government, the free and fair elections that we have held here in Marquette. And I'm grateful to the people who have made that happen year after year after year. And I pledge my time and support to making sure that that continues into the future as a local elected official. I'm going to move now, comments from the city manager.
Thank you. I was just going to make one comment, which you stole from me, Madam Pro Tem. That the work session on the 19th will outline the next phase of our Lakeshore Boulevard project. Dennis and his staff will be presenting, and it'll give you a good idea of what we plan to do with the money that we have. And that was all I had to add tonight, but thank you very much for your continued support, and we continue to do the good work of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, meeting adjourned at 7:31 p.m. Thank you, everyone.